Hi, we are Black Midi. Welcome to our What's in Our Bag.
Sons who raise his arms, a ground champ while sugar bled on. No doctor on the scene, the audience won.
Yo, what's good, people? We have Seth from Black Midi and myself, Morgan from Black Midi.
I picked up this Nina Simone at Town Hall record. I've not actually listened to it before, but I just think she's one of the greatest musicians ever, really, in every way, from her voice and the way that she plays piano. I'm a big fan of all of her records, really, that I've heard so far. This track on it, Wild as the Wind, I listened to with a friend of mine, not this version of it, and yeah, I guess I'll listen through to this with him when I get home.
I hear the sound of mandolins.
Here I've got Sly Family Stone, one of my favourite bands of all time, one of the greatest bands of all time, and one of my favourite records of all time. Trio of compliments, right? Kind of like the beginning of Sly's sort of adventurous career, really. You know, the place that he ended up is really quite far away from where he started, and I think that's really inspiring. And I don't think he really gets his props, you know. I think Sly is in the James Brown, George Clinton conversations.
All right, first CD, the Pogues, Rest of the Best. Listened to it a lot in the car when I was a kid. My dad always told the story about how one of the guys in the band used to, for percussion, smash a dinner tray on his head. So that was always a little fun thing that I thought every time I listened to them.
Three movies. We got Shortcuts, which is a Robert Altman anthology film of Raymond Carver stories. I haven't seen it. It's meant to be very good.
What's that for?
I thought I might have to examine you later on.
It's called Rouge. It's a Hong Kong movie. It's I don't really know anything about it. It's meant to be good, and it's got Leslie Chung, who I love in Farewell My Concubine, one of my favorite films ever. And Ugetsu, which is a Japanese film by Mizoguchi, and I have seen, and it's brilliant.
The next one I got was Miles Davis, In a Silent Way. Classic record. It's got Joe Zawinul on it, playing the electric piano, which I have recently become a big fan of. Picked up back in London a Wurlitzer 200A the other day, which I've been playing to the point of getting RSI pretty much. Morgan kindly drove me to help pick it up. And we put on, well, just recently in general, a lot of records like this, or like the On the Corner sessions and stuff like that. Listening to that, picking up that keyboard has been super inspiring, basically, so I just wanted to have a record that I could sit down and listen to.
Next up, we got Brand X with a record called Product. I'm not too sure how many people are familiar with this band, but it was basically Phil Collins' sort of spin-off jazz fusion project, which is really cool. I've only really listened to this record before, and I think the cover's amazing, and you'll hear some cool fretless bass on there, kind of typical of late 70s jazz fusion. You either love or you hate it. I love it.
I got two Scott Walker CDs here. Our sound engineer in Europe did this funny thing where he listened to one of the Scott Walker, Scott 1 to 4, but each time he fell asleep. So it kind of kicks a little bit of everyone listening to Scott Walker again, so I thought I'd just get a couple.
I could be for just one little hour, a cute in a stupid ass way.
So we have Esther Piazzulu, who's the master of Argentinian tango. He's probably the most famous kind of proponent of the genre. He studied with Nadia Boulanger in France, and he was, highly knowledgeable in, you know, music composition and stuff. So his music is really symphonic, really sinister, really takes a lot from the best of modern classical music. And this is 3 albums, Tango 0 Hour, which is, I think, an amazing, brilliant album I've listened to countless times, and La Camorra, which I know as well, is very good. But this one, The Rough Dance, I've never heard. So, interesting.
Next one I got is this. I don't really know too much about it, but that cover is fucking cool. It looks great. I know George Duke is a killer keyboard player. That's also pretty amazing. I just want to get one of these, man. I saw the cover and thought, yeah, it looks cool, so I guess I'll put it on at home and see what I'm in for.
Next up, we have this record called Lost in the Stars, which is the music of Kurt Weill. And this is a record that Cam bought, Cam from the band, he bought a few weeks ago. And I remember looking at the cover and being like, what's going on here? Like the sheer names and like the, you know, you got Marion Faithfull, you got Charlie Hayden, Carla Bley, Todd Rundgren, Lou Reed, Sting, Tom Waits, John Zorn. You'd like to think that's a pretty good record, right?
Me and one of the drivers, one of the crew, have been sitting, and there's like a second van that we've got, which has only got 2 seats in. So sometimes we'll do a short ride and listen to like lots of Tom Waits. One of the ones that we haven't listened to is the Black Rider. I've tried to watch the YouTube video of the play quite a few times, but then I always forget that it's in German and I don't speak German. So I'll hear the record for the first time.
My hair slicked back with curry and shellac, and the blood from a pheasant, the bone from my hair.
2 country albums. We have Willie Nelson, this album which is songs by Lefty Frizzell, which I've heard but never really got into, so I thought I'd buy it and try and get into it.
But the rails are now rusty and the dining car's dusty. The gold-plated watches have taken their...
And this Motorcycle Be Unbroken, Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, which is one of the best albums of all time, despite the bad imagery.
Will the circle be unbroken?
Next up is this Floating Points of Ferris Sanders record. He passed away sadly recently. I was lucky enough to catch Ferris Sanders playing at a festival about 4 years ago, and his voice in particular I found really, really, really amazing. And also just the energy that he had, it kind of seemed like he was struggling to walk from one side of the stage to the other, but once he got behind the mic, he was just moving around the stage as if he was about 14 years old. It was just an amazing thing to watch.
Milford Gray's percussion ensemble with Sonny Morgan. When I think about Milford Gray, he isn't someone who strikes me as a drummer, he's like a musician. You know, it's so interesting listening to him talk about how he thinks about percussion and drums as an instrument. And I think it's just, you know, it's literally just drums, you know, percussion, shakers, bells for the whole record, but it's just really, I find it really cathartic actually to listen to and really inspiring when I'm in like a bit of a creative rot. When it comes to playing, I'll just bang this on and I'm straight.
This was the first CD I ever owned, but obviously because it was the first CD I ever owned, it's completely ruined. So I got a second copy.
Help me if you can, I'm feeling down.
And I have heard about half of this record, I really liked it, so I just thought I'd buy it.
A salsa album, Ruben Blades, with Kenda America, I guess. It's I think this is a soundtrack for a movie in mid-80s, so this is without Willie Colony. This is after they fell out, and it's instead, it's a bit more electronic. There's some elements of 80s production seeping in. This is Stravinsky's Cantata, which is, and it's got his Mass as well. And this little piece he did for Dylan Thomas. Okay, so I didn't even read that properly. All I knew is I had the cantata because that's one of my favorite pieces of his. I think it's very underrated. Specifically, the fourth part, I like Wake Dirge, which is really hypnotic, mesmerizing, circular kind of music.
Thin Lizzy, Live and Dangerous, amazing record. I just wanted to get something that's good fun, and this record is definitely good fun. I'm a big Thin Lizzy fan. I like the harmonies the guitars have got, the guy's voice and stuff like that. A lot of the time, if I just like trying to do some exercise or wake up in the morning and stuff like that, I'll slap that record on and it does the trick for me big time.
I am your main man if you're looking for trouble. Take no lip, no one's tougher than me.
And to carry on the epic theme,
Nice.
we've got epic. You get me? AC/DC, if you want blood, you've got it. Come on, man, look at that. Guy's dead. That's how epic it is. Like, the most epic record. We've been banging it out for like a good while now. It's just one of those records where it's like, fair play, you know? Like, the fact that it's a live record and it's recorded and produced so well, the playing is obviously incredible. The tones of like, obviously the guitars, the bass, the drums, it's just so dialed in, and I feel like there's a lot to take from that in terms of like, these guys were able to do that or produce this during a live gig. So we don't really have an excuse when we get into the studio, right? That's the one.
Hell ain't a bad place to be.
I got this when I was like 17, 18, 19. I was like a massive Arthur Russell stan. But the thing about being a stan is that you kind of don't really stop. And I don't have this on any format, so I got it.
It's a loving baby. It's a talk in the dark.
And now we have Frank Sinatra's Watertown, which is a brilliant album, unmatched. It's the only foray he made into kind of rock music. He worked with a guy from the Four Seasons, and it was an attempt to kind of get at a younger audience, maybe. In 1970, I think, it was the only time he recorded separate from the orchestra. They did their thing, and then he overdubbed it over. And he hated the experience, and he considered it a failure. It wasn't a commercial success at all. But the songs are brilliant. His performance is brilliant in a kind of way where he's almost half singing a lot of the songs. But it's fantastic. I made sure to not get the recent reissue, which has just come out, because from what I've heard, maybe this is just, you know, attachment bias, whatever, recognition. I don't like the new mixes.
The new mixes are crap.
Yeah.
She reaches out across the table, looks at me, and quietly says,
Thank you so much for shopping with us today.
For sure, thank you. I'm a happy man.
whatever you like. Blizzard tonight.
Amoeba